Does that red button mean we're live?
I
I think so.
think so, but can you confirm, Evan, we're live now?
We are live.
Okay.
We are live. So why don't I go ahead and call the November meeting of the Finance Committee to order. And we can go straight into, we have roll, myself here, Colin Hostin is present with Diana Carpio and Sherelle Harris. Welcome, everybody. And first order of business will be to approve the minutes from the last 2 months. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve them together?
Aye.
Thank you, Diana. Is that okay with you, Sherelle?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Oh, wonderful, yes.
Okay, great. Is there any discussion or changes to the minutes?
No, not that I saw.
I don't have any. Great. Then do we want to go ahead and vote to approve the minutes from September 9th and October 14th?
So
Yes.
moved.
Thanks, Sherelle, and Diana seconds. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Wow, perfect. Now we can go directly into the budget transfers for this month.
Okay, you do have a number of budget transfers, one page of transfers, and they consist essentially of a number of transfers in special education. And most of these transfers are moving within one wage account to another wage account. So for instance, the first one is a transfer of $116,000 in the 119 wage account, which is for our related services. In this case, it's speech pathologist, which was originally budgeted in location 03, which is Brian McMahon, and it was moved to location 05, which is Norwalk High School, and that's due to caseload adjustments. So every year, based on where the need is identified, obviously new students come in and students age out or may move out of the district, or the needs requirements for these kinds of services can shift from one year to the next. So this is due to a caseload adjustment shift that the special ed department has requested transferring that money. And really most of the other transfers under special education that you see here.
Excuse me, Tom, they're not on
Yes.
the screen. So
Oh,
maybe
I'm sorry. Yes.
no, that's okay.
I can roll that down. That's probably helpful. So yeah, so the first one we were just talking about was this $116,000 transfer. And all of these transfers down through, I guess it's down through here, 156 tells us that's the special education department. And most of these, as you read them, are related to caseload adjustments. There were two up here that were correcting transfers that were actually made last month. And after looking at it more closely, we determined that we had moved the money to the wrong place, so we need to move it somewhere else. But again, the initial transfer was again related to caseload adjustments. And so that's what these transfers are. And we have the same issue down here. 154 is the curriculum department, curriculum office, and these are EL services that we're talking about here. So again, it's a shifting of resources from one location to another location for EL related services. So in the case of the one that I'm sort of hovering over here, this is shifting from Kendall to Columbus and Fox Run due to caseload adjustments. This one down here, the 93,000, is shifting from Cranberry to Columbus and Kendall due to caseload adjustments. So it's shifting of staff basically from one location to another. And this down here, we're back into special education down here. This is psychology services, but again, it's related to caseload adjustments. And then the last transfer, this $21,000 transfer, is in the Ponus middle school budget, and requesting a $21,000 transfer from professional development to instructional equipment to purchase 8 ViewSonic boards, and that is to support the synchronous instruction in the hybrid model that we're currently in. So I don't know if there's any questions about any of these specific transfers, but happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Just out of curiosity, Tom, are these caseload adjustments, is there a sense that they're happening more or more frequently because of the adaptive instructional environment we're in?
I don't think so, really. I'll ask Kristen to chime in here because you've had perhaps more discussion with the vet than I have on this, but I do know that this is a pretty routine kind of change that happens every year. What we are doing that's a little different is we are taking care of these transfers earlier as opposed to waiting later in the year to process them. So we're trying to clean these things up as we go along, as opposed to waiting until June or May to have a whole slew of transfers. So hopefully you'll see fewer transfers coming at the end of the year because of the fact that we're trying to stay on top of these during the year. But I think the fact that there are, people, especially in special education, routinely do get moved from one place to another, even if it's, they're following if it's in the case of special education aides, they follow the student from school to school. So if they, they may move from the elementary grades to the, middle school grades, and then, so the special ed para may follow that student with them. So.
Right. And what happens is when we budget, we're budgeting, almost a year in advance of the next following school year. So we do the best we can to project where the caseloads and student needs are. And then, when the students come on board, we have a better idea or a more exact idea of what we really need. And that's where the caseload adjustments come in. And to Tom's earlier point, we're going to try to do everything up front as soon as we find out, instead of waiting during the year or towards the end of the year.
Sounds good to me. Thank you. So do we need to vote to approve these transfers?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve these budget transfers? Diana, thank you. Cheryl, is that okay?
Second. Yep.
Thank you. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. We can move on to.
Okay, the monthly financial report, you now have the month of October. So we are at this point, I guess we are 33% of the way through the fiscal year and 20% of the way through the school year. The overall rate of expenditure at this point, at the end of October, we'd spent just over $43 million, or about 21% of the budget, which is very much in line with where we would expect to be. We are running below last year, about 9% below last year, but that's really a timing issue, not a issue that is indicative that we're spending at a much lower rate. The timing issue is in the benefit line, and I'll show you the detail on it. The benefit line you can see is 7.3 million this year compared to 9.5 million last year. So that's a 23% reduction compared to last year, and that's by virtue of the fact that the city controller has set up the charge to our benefit account on a quarterly basis, and the year before, I believe it was done on a 3 times it was done on a third of a year basis. And then the other area where you see a pretty significant change from prior year is under here in the 500 series. You can see we spent $1,628,000. Last year we had spent $6,687,000 at the same time of the year. And that's because under the prior school bus contract, we prepaid the vast majority of our transportation bill, and we received a prepayment discount for doing that, but we didn't set the new contract up with Durham on that basis. I really preferred not to be prepaying for services, although in the case of First Student, because they did provide such a significant prepayment discount, we did do it. But my preference is really not to prepay for services. If you end up in an unfortunate situation, if a company were to suddenly, go bankrupt and stop delivering services, we wouldn't want to find ourselves having, already paid for all the services and, having to deal with that situation. So in any event, those are really the two major items in here that are variances from prior year. Looking at some of the detail under the wage accounts, couple of things. One, degree level changes are actually running quite high. We don't pay for degree level changes directly out of this line item, but rather what we do is we transfer funds out of this line item to cover the regular salary line. So what that means is that the teachers are budgeted in a whole series of 117 accounts down here. And so if a teacher gets moves from a bachelor's lane to a master's lane, then they're entitled to a additional salary bump as a result of that additional education. And that gets paid out of their regular teacher salary line. And then we transfer the funds needed to cover that from this place here. But you can see we started with 162,000 and we've needed to transfer out a significantly more than 162,000 because the number right now, well, I guess we've needed to transfer out $301,000 year to date. So that is running higher than budget. We are working with the talent office to try to get a better methodology in place to project that. In the grand scheme of the district budget, I'm sure we'll be able to accommodate this, but that is an area where we want to tighten up the budget going forward for next year. Long-term substitutes are running higher than expected or higher than budgeted, and that is almost certainly attributable to the COVID-19 situation and the number of people who are on some sort of leave or we've got vacancies that we're unable to fill. So we do our substitute expenses are running higher than expected, but we will have turned back in the regular wage accounts to cover those expenses. The teachers at 19.86% are, about where we would expect to see them. Again, because of vacancies, we may have a little money there that would be available to transfer into long-term substitutes, but essentially we're on budget with respect to teachers. And this is, of course, the largest portion of the district budget at $81.8 million for teachers' wages. I'm going to go on unless there's any questions on that page. This is a continuation of salaries here and some of the smaller salary accounts. And again, nothing extraordinary to report here. We're at 22% overall in the wages, which is very much in line with where we would expect to be. Down here under the 212 account, the fringe benefit account, this is the one I was referring to, the fact that the controller's office has booked the first quarter at 5.9 million. Last year, they had booked 8 million at the same time. So it's not that our benefit expense has gone down, they're just booking it slightly differently than they had in the past. Continuing on, you can see we've paid out most of the longevity at this point. The biggest portion of longevity is paid out in October, so that was paid out this month. Professional and technical services, we are running, under where, at this point have expended 17% of the budget. So I don't think there's any, issues to be concerned about with here. The 330 account is running a little higher than last year. I looked in at, although it's not running over budget, it's actually running below where we might otherwise expect it if you were just annualizing where we are at this point in the year. But what's new in here this year that was incurred in October this year, but had not been incurred as of October last year, is the payment to the Carver Foundation, which is $337,000 as our support to Carver to run the after school programs and after the bell. And so that's the biggest reason for the increase compared to last year in the 330 account. There is also in this account some payments. Dr. Case, who's serving as the Chief Academic Officer, is actually, she has a contract through her company to serve as Chief Academic Officer. So we've got some wages that will be accruing in our wage line for the Chief Academic Officer and some expense down here. Moving on, property services. Again, nothing really out of the ordinary to report here. The 430 account, which is repairs and maintenance services, we have expended about 47% of the budget. It appears that the biggest chunk of this actually relates to expenses in the IT department, and those are for annual contracts. So I don't think there's anything to be worried about at this point, even though we're 47% expended out of that line. In total, property services are at 27%, which again is very much in line with where we would expect it at this point. Under the
quick question, Tom.
Sure.
On property services, I see that we do have so maybe above expected for under boiler repairs.
Yeah.
Does that include? I know we had identified some grant money to do boiler repairs at two buildings, which I can't remember the exact ones.
Right.
Are those separate from this?
That is separate from this. So
Got it.
that will be accounted for in what we refer to as Fund 12 or our grants fund. And this report is just Fund 11, which is the local budget money. So this is what comes directly from the city. Okay. So this money is really for repairs during the year, that as opposed to boiler replacement, and what's going to be funded from that grant is really a boiler replacement.
Okay, thank you.
So, hopefully, because of the boiler replacement, we'll actually see some savings in the future in this line because of fewer, boiler breakdowns that require repairs. That's certainly the hope. Under the 500 series, which is other services, the biggest item here is student transportation, this 510 line. And this is the one where I'd indicated we are paying the bills as, on a monthly basis, as opposed to prepaying the bills, which is what you saw last year. And that accounts for the biggest change. Out of district tuition is running well below same point last year. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look into that. There could be a timing issue in terms of some payments that haven't hit. I don't believe that we're expecting, a 50% decline in our out-of-district tuitions, but we are expected to be, certainly on budget, or, we don't expect to run over budget in these accounts this year. And let's see. And supplies and materials are actually running a little bit lower than might be expected. So you can see this 600 account is running at 7%. The 610, which is the general supplies, is running at about 20%. Instructional supplies, which is mostly funded in the schools, is only at about 4%. And these numbers are all quite low, low compared to where we were last year. And I don't know whether, Kristen, I have not had a chance to look at these, and, it may be a matter of, some of these.
I think it's timing of when the bills are being paid. That's part of it, and ordering. That's a piece of it.
Yeah, I don't know whether COVID might have slowed things down a little bit, and it's possible that there may have been some supplies that were available that were ordered and received last year that perhaps they're using. That might also explain the delay in these. But in the grand scheme of the entire district budget, it's not an enormous amount of money, and I suspect that we will, see some of these accounts pick up as we continue through the year.
Right. Some of it could be actual accounts payable, and some of it things could be on back order.
Right. And let me see. I think so. In total, supplies and materials, again, you can see we're at about 13% expended, or $1 million, which is about $500,000 lower than the same point last year. But again, that probably is mostly a timing issue, and maybe some catch up. The equipment accounts, which are the 700 series, I didn't really notice anything particularly unusual going on here. We are running a little bit higher than last year, but again, at 29%, it's pretty much where we would expect it to be at this point during the year. And I think that pretty much covers everything. I don't know if there's any other questions.
None for me. I think you answered this question, but just overall, it sounds like there's no red flags in this month's report.
Right.
So
no red flags. And we've reported in the past about the coronavirus relief fund and the grants that we have available from that program, as well as the grants from the ESSER grant and the Board of Estimate and Taxation did at their last meeting in early November, did approve, so I guess that was just last week, did approve the carryover request. And the carryover request from the board was to carry over the full 2% that had been approved by our board, I believe, at the October board business meeting, if I remember correctly. And so the Board of Estimate did approve that, and 1.5 million is really being used to support the original adopted budget for 2021. So that was anticipated. We had built that into our final reconciled budget for 2021, and the Common Council, or not the Common Council, but the Board of Estimate, which is the final, this carryover request only has to go to the Board of Estimate, so it doesn't require any further approval from the city. So they did approve the 1.5 million. And then in addition to that, we requested the balance to bring us up to the 2% maximum, which was $2,469,000, that the Board of Estimate approved that carryover to be used for extraordinary reopening expenses. And so that's going to be used really for a whole host of expenses that were not built into our budget. In particular, the additional paraprofessionals who've been hired to staff these auxiliary classrooms so that we can appropriately distance, socially distance students. So we've got, these auxiliary classroom spaces that have been developed or constructed, if you will, in libraries and media centers and cafeterias and so forth. And so, so that's what a good portion of the expense will be used for, as well as a whole host of other expenses that are, that will be ongoing, whether it's PPE or enhanced cleaning services and all the like. But the good news is that with the carryover funds from the city, plus with the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant and the ESSER grant, we feel pretty confident that we can get through this year with those resources. So we think we shouldn't have to go back to the city with an additional funding request to get us through this year. At least that's our expectation at this point. So
Great.
that kind of brings you up to speed on that issue.
We'll take the good news where we can. Thank you. So next on the agenda are public comments, and I understand we don't have any.
Right. We did get an email from Maura. The comments are accepted via email, and Maura emailed that we had not received any public comments.
In that case, at just about half an hour, I think we've covered a lot. So thank you. And if we want to have a motion to adjourn. Diana, thank you. Seconded by Sherelle, thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Nice and quick and easy.
Right.
Thanks, thanks, Kristen.
If only
Thank you,
all our
everybody.
meetings were so quick and easy, right? But
I
Yeah,
know.
that'd be good.
And we'll take it.
No, thank you for everything, you guys, and all the work you've been doing through the year. And I know that we had a nice, easy meeting today because we've gotten all the details prior to this, and this is actually just catching up on new info. But thank you for everything.
okay, great. Thank you very much.
Good night,
Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
Have a good night, guys.